Stunning upset of the presidential campaign to date. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders defeated Hillary Clinton in the Michigan primary. Sanders won 50% of the vote to Clinton's 48%. During the campaign, Sanders focused heavily on his opposition to what he called disastrous trade deals like NAFTA, which have hurt Michigan's manufacturing sector. Opinion polls had projected Clinton would easily win the state by as much as 20%. On Tuesday afternoon, Nate Silver's popular polling site 538.com predicted Clinton had a greater than 99% chance of winning the Michigan primary. But late last night, Silver wrote that Michigan would, quote, count as among the greatest polling errors in primary history.
Despite Bernie Sanders' upset in Michigan, Hillary Clinton ended up winning more delegates Tuesday thanks to a lopsided win in Mississippi, where she won 83% of the vote. Clinton now has 760 pledged delegates to Sanders' 546. In addition, Clinton has secured support from an overwhelming number of unelected superdelegates made up from the party establishment, though they could change their allegiance at any point. Sanders gave an impromptu news conference outside a hotel in Miami last night before he learned of the results in Michigan.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank the people of Michigan who kind of repudiated the polls that had us 20, 25 points down a few days ago, who repudiated the pundits who said that Bernie Sanders was not going anywhere. And what tonight means is that the Bernie Sanders campaign, the people's revolution that we are talking about, the political revolution that we are talking about, is strong in every part of the country. And frankly, we believe that our strongest areas are yet to happen. We're going to do very, very well in the West Coast and other parts of this country. What the American people are saying is they are tired of a corrupt campaign finance system and super PACs funded by Wall Street and the billionaire class. They are tired of a rigged economy in which people in Michigan, people in Illinois, people in Ohio are working longer hours for lower wages, worried to death about the future of their kids, and yet almost all new income and wealth is going to the top 1%. And the people of America are tired of a broken criminal justice system in which we have more people in jail, largely African American, Latino, Native American, more people in jail than any other major country on earth. So we started this campaign, as many will remember, 10 months ago. We were 60 or 70 points down in the polls. And yet what we have seen is in poll after poll, state after state, what we have done is created the kind of momentum that we need to win.
Hillary Clinton spent the evening in Ohio, which also holds a primary on Tuesday. She addressed supporters before the results of Michigan came in.
I want to talk about what working families are up against across the country. I want to talk about how we have a new bargain so you can get ahead and stay ahead. In every industrial city, small town, farm country, Indian country, every community that's been hollowed out by lost jobs and lost hopes. Don't let anybody tell you we can't make it in America anymore. We can, we are, and we will. But in order to do that, we can't be talking about building walls or turning the clock back. We have to build on what made America great in the first place, our energy and optimism, our openness and creativity.
We're now joined by three guests here in New York. Cornel West, professor at Union Theological Seminary, has endorsed Bernie Sanders for president last summer. He's author of a number of books, most recently Black Prophetic Fire. Dolores Huerta joins us from San Diego, California, civil rights activist, co-founder of the United Farm Workers of America with Cesar Chavez, president of the Dolores Huerta Foundation for Community Organizing. Dolores Huerta has endorsed Hillary Clinton for president. And in Los Angeles, we're joined joined by Melina Abdullah, an organizer with Black Lives Matter, which has not endorsed any presidential candidate. She is also a professor and chair of Pan-African Studies at California State University in Los Angeles. We welcome you all to Democracy Now! Well, Dr. Cornel West, we're going to begin with you because, at least for the pollsters, this is a stunning upset. I have to say, I think even Bernie Sanders was surprised. I've never seen him alone like that, just standing against a wall, holding a news conference for the press, spoke for a few minutes. He didn't yet know the primary results. It seemed to be coming a few minutes later. You were with him in Michigan this weekend.
No, it's true. We had no idea that we would have this kind of upset. We knew that we were going to fight based on integrity, based on principle. We know that we're in a moment where we got a neo-fascist in the making with Trump. We're trying to bring neoliberalism to a close. We got a neo-populist, a genuine populist in Sanders, and Hillary Clinton is a neoliberal, but she poses as a progressive. And so there's a sense in which we know that Bernie Sanders is the one to beat Trump. And that's crucial because we're at a very, very deep moment in this country. And I want to salute you all because the corporate media has produced Trump in a fundamental way. Every minute he's covered. Every second he's covered. Bernie Sanders hardly gets covered at all, but he has the same number of people following. Hillary Clinton gets covered more than Bernie, but not as much as Trump. So in that sense, I think we've got some real work ahead, but I've got a smile on my face.
CNN and MSNBC, I'm not talking about Fox, CNN and MSNBC both ran the entire extended news conference that Donald Trump held. Now, Hillary Clinton actually spoke midway through Trump speaking. Usually they switch from one to another. Here they held the tape of Hillary Clinton to run the entire extended news conference of Trump in Florida.
No, I think it's a very sad affair, but I'm also very sad that Black America is not waking up in the way in which we should. We've got a spiritual rot and a moral cowardice in our neoliberal black political class and our neoliberal black intelligentsia who don't want to tell the truth about the underside of the Hillary Clinton campaign. And the underside really has to do with not just the Clinton machine and all of its corruptions and so forth, but more importantly, the policies, the trade policies, the mass incarceration regime, the deregulating of the banks and so forth. But Brother Bernie's hitting his head on. It's difficult for Hillary to somehow act as if she's such a populist when she's been a centrist for so very long.
One of the things was about the Michigan primary in particular was that since it was an open primary, that meant that independents could vote, not just Democrats.
That's right.
And some of the speculation is that at the last moment, a lot of independents decided, well, let me go into the Democratic primary and vote for Bernie, which is a sort of an indication of where, because the electorate in the United States is pretty much divided 1/3 Democrat, 1/3 independent, 1/3 Republican, where the independents are going.
But I think given the class issues that Brother Bernie and all of us are trying to push, in Michigan, the class issues make a big difference. It's generational and it's ideological, and it's a beautiful thing to see.
Well, I'd like to bring in Dolores Huerta, longtime civil rights activist, co-founder of United Farm Workers of America. Your sense of what happened yesterday in these primaries and why you think it's so important for Democrats and others to vote for Hillary Clinton?
Well, I think one thing is that we seem to put a lot of blame on Hillary for things that Bill Clinton did in the Clinton administration, which I don't think is right. I think the other thing, too, is that I know that Bernie's got a very strong message. I respect him very much for his message that he's bringing about the inequality in our economic system. But Bernie knows, since he's been in the Congress for 26 years, that we also have to have a Congress to be able to bring to fruition some of the great ideas that he's put forth. I do believe that Hillary Clinton, I do have a lot of faith in her. I think she's got the skills, she's got the wisdom, she's got the experience to make things happen. When we compare the records of the two candidates, we see that Hillary Clinton's record is much, much stronger than Bernie Sanders is. And I do believe that what Bernie is saying and what he wants to happen, and I believe in many, many of the ideas that he's put forth, but I think it will take time, and we've got to really elect a good Congress. People forget. And I know the Affordable Care Act, that when that passed the Congress, it only passed with 4 or 5 votes, even though we had a 25 Democratic majority at that time. And I have to say that in terms of the Latino community, we are completely in support of Hillary, simply because Bernie just hasn't been there for the Latino community. He had a really good opportunity in 2007 when Senator Ted Kennedy, Hillary Clinton, Senator Durbin from Illinois, when they proposed a good immigration reform bill, and we had all of the momentum behind us at that time because we had all of these marches all over the country for immigration reform, and Bernie, unfortunately, came out against that bill, and that was very sad that he did that. And what he has said repeatedly is that he came out against the bill because it had the guest worker program in it. Well, wait a minute. When we passed the amnesty bill in 1986, we had guest workers in that bill with protections for the foreign workers, protections for the domestic workers. The bill that he voted on in 2013 also had the guest worker program in it. So I think he just wasn't paying attention at that time, and I think we lost a great opportunity. So again, I believe in Bernie's message. I think we can make it happen. I think it's going to have to be an evolution rather than a revolution, and I think all of us that are on the left and working people are going to be able to make it happen. The other thing I want to point out, when we look at Hillary's victories, especially in the South, they're like 70% to 30%. But we see the places that where she has lost to Bernie Sanders, it's in single digits. Whereas where she is winning, where Bernie's at, it's actually 2 to 1. So I do have a lot of faith in Hillary Clinton, and I do believe that she will make a very, very strong president because she is a very strong woman.
And Cornel, I want to go to what Dolores mentioned about this issue of revolution, because really, given the nature of Washington today with these huge Republican majorities in the House and the Senate, isn't Bernie Sanders to some degree selling the idea of revolution that he cannot deliver unless there's a fundamental change in the Congress as well?
Well, one, I just salute Sister Dolores. She's my dear sister. I just think she's wrong. I think that it's very difficult to have faith in Hillary Clinton when she receives money from the GEO, which sustained the detention centers for precious immigrants, incarcerated them unjustly. I don't see how one could make the case that somehow you got a candidate that has the kind of integrity that we want. There's no doubt indeed that Bernie Sanders can win because he recognizes he's a politician that needs a social movement behind him. He is a thermostat. He shapes the climate. Hillary is a thermometer. She just registers and reflects the climate. We need somebody who's shaping the way Occupy shaped the discourse around wealth inequality, the way Black Lives Matter shaped the discourse around vicious legacies of white supremacy as it related to the repressive apparatus of the nation state in regard to this trigger-happy policing going on with our precious young brothers and sisters.
Well, I believe that Hillary has already come out for prison reform, and I think that she actually can help make that happen. And I think a lot of us that are out there, including yourself, Cornel, my dear brother, I love
sister.
Dearly.
I love you dearly too, my sister. Indeed,
we will be out there. We will be out there organizing to make sure that some of these reforms will happen. I think we have, when we compare our Democratic candidates to our Republican candidates, I think we can be so grateful that we have intelligent people that are running for the presidency. And I know whichever of them wins, I know we're going to have a good presidency. The one other thing I want to point out is that we have the Republicans that are putting a lot of money into Bernie's campaign, to these independent campaigns, to make sure that they can defeat Hillary Clinton, because they figure that it'll be easier to defeat Bernie than it will be to defeat Hillary Clinton in November.
The polls say Bernie does better against Trump than Hillary does. But I know you want to get our other sister in here. You want to get our other sister.
You are one of the founding members of the Black Lives Matter movement. The movement has decided not to endorse any presidential candidate. Why not?
So I think there's 3 reasons why we're not endorsing any candidate. The first is that neither Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton have a strong command of the particular issues related to race and the specificity of Black oppression. Neither have been willing to really invest the time or energy to develop plans that really get Black folks free. So we don't have a whole lot of faith in either of the Democratic candidates, and absolutely we don't have any faith in Donald Trump or Drump for whoever he is. So it's the candidates. But then the second thing is the confines of the two-party system. We recognize that both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are controlled by moneyed interests. And as much as Bernie Sanders and to a lesser degree Hillary Clinton have kind of pushed back against that idea that they're controlled by money, and Bernie Sanders has kind of identified with socialism, Still, we know that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are built to entrench themselves. So no matter what the candidates attempt to do, being controlled by the two-party system is hugely problematic and is disempowering and oppressive to Black people. And then the third reason is when we think about what democracy is, democracy being ruled by the people, we need to really kind of redefine what that means and break away from this notion that the only way of being democratic is engaging in electoral politics. And we're not telling people not to vote. We're simply not endorsing any presidential candidate, recognizing that where we want to put our time and energy is in the development of people to act in their own interests and on their own behalf. And so we are pushing the real revolution. We know that the revolution won't come at the ballot box, and the revolution won't be televised. The revolution will be on the ground when the people rise up and demand something better, something more imaginative, and something more visionary.
Professor Melina Abdullah, Dr. Cornel West, and civil rights leader Dolores Huerta. We're going to break, come back to this debate. And at the end of the broadcast, we'll go to Washington to speak with a reporter who covered the secret Sea Island meeting. That's the Georgia meeting of high-tech CEOs like the head of Google, like the head of Apple, Karl Rove, and others, as well as the publisher of the New York Times, gathering together to talk about how Trump can be stopped. Stay with us.
Yeah, ask him the phone.
That's Fannie Lou Hamer, This Little Light of Mine. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez, our guests, to debate the Democratic side of this presidential race are the legendary farm worker leader, Dolores Huerta, joining us from San Diego. She's about to get on a plane. Professor Melina Abdullah of California State, representing the Black Lives Matter movement, and Professor Cornel West, now of Union Theological Seminary, before that Princeton, before that Harvard, before that Princeton. Very interesting trajectory of his life, author of many books. He's representing Bernie Sanders. Juan?
Yeah, I wanted to turn to a comment that Senator Bernie Sanders made at Sunday's debate in Flint, Michigan, when he was asked about his racial blind spots.
When you're white, you don't know what it's like to be living in a ghetto. You don't know what it's like to be poor. You don't know what it's like to be hassled when you walk down the street or you get dragged out of a car. And I believe that as a nation in the year 2016, we must be firm in making it clear we will end institutional racism and reform a broken criminal justice system.
Melina Abdullah, I'd like to ask you about this because it seems to me that what we're seeing here among the Democratic candidates is a replay of a long-standing battle in the left or progressive movement in America, that if you address the class struggle, racial conflicts will be dealt with, which seems to be a lot of the direction of Bernie Sanders. But there's another perspective in the left that has always said, no, there's a national or racial and class struggle, and they may be connected, but you've got to address the specificity of racial and class, racial oppression in the United States, separate and apart from the class struggle. I'm wondering your response to Bernie Sanders' comments.
Right, absolutely. So there are intersections between race and class. And, you know, Professor West writes extensively about this. Manning Marable wrote extensively about these intersections. And so we absolutely need to address questions of class, questions of the economic system. At the same time, when we think about the specificity of blackness, black folks wind up at the bottom of every single economic measure, from employability to household income to wealth. And so we need a plan. We need our candidates and we need our leaders to have specific plans that deal with race on a whole and the specifics of blackness. And so I think that there was some clumsiness with what Bernie Sanders had to say. I think that it's clear that he's being pushed, and I think, you know, some of the push is probably coming from someone I respect a great deal, Dr. West, some of the push is also coming from the folks on the ground. So when we think about Black Lives Matter activists as interrupting and engaging Senator Sanders, I think that we see some push happening. At the same time, we see him not being there yet. And so we need to develop a plan that really deals with the specifics of blackness, black jobs, black employability, moving forward black wealth. I know Senator Sanders also has had some questions around reparations posed where he didn't have what we see to be a satisfactory answer.
Your response to that, Professor
No,
West?
I think my dear sister is very fair, and I'm going to be with her in the streets, and I'm going to be with her when we go to jail, because there's a social movement side of this thing, and then there's electoral politics on the other hand. But I think the important thing to keep in mind is there will be no black freedom unless there is economic equality, unless Wall Street has some regulation, unless there's a redistribution of wealth downward. So the class issue is fundamental, but it doesn't fully grasp not just race, not just gender, not just sexual orientation, but also empire. You see, when I hear Hillary Clinton say that she loves children, and you got 550 Palestinian children killed in 51 days, and she can't say a mumbling word. Bernie Sanders gave a speech. He said the Israeli Defense Forces went too far. I stand on this, and I'm not going to meet with the Israeli Prime Minister. Now, he's saying this as a Jewish brother. That takes courage in the face of the powerful forces coming at him. Hillary Clinton, she's hawkish, she's right-wing, she's imperial in her orientation. That's very important.
Dolores Huerta, your response.
Well, I have to say that Hillary Clinton stood up to Netanyahu when they were going to be extending some of the housing in the West Bank. So I believe that Hillary's very strong, and I really don't believe she's all those things that Cornel just said. Excuse me to differ with you on that, brother.
No, that's fine.
But the other thing, too, about Hillary, you know, Hillary came down into the Rio Grande Valley of Texas when she got out of law school. She could have gone to some corporation. She went down there into South Texas with the poorest people of Mexican descent down there to register voters door to door. I first met Hillary Clinton when she invited me to the White House when she was the First Lady, myself and a group of women of color. And she said, I want to know what the issues are in your community. She has been down there. This is why we've got so much respect for her. And Bernie hasn't been there. He hasn't been there.
But you know, at the same time,
let me finish. Let me finish. Okay. Let me finish. So I think that the one thing that we're kind of leaving out of this conversation is how did we get here? You know, when we have a system right now where the corporations have unlimited amounts of money to put into election campaigns. My own son is going to run for Congress. He has been recruited to run for Congress. He's a public interest attorney. We have no money. We're not wealthy. He worked for the Cesar Chavez Foundation for 17 years before it became his own private practice. How do we raise the money to help him get elected when you've got a limit of $5,400 that anybody can give, any individual can give? But the super PACs have unlimited amounts of money. So when we're talking about changing the system, we've got to start with public campaign financing. In order to do that, we've got to have a good Congress. And please, Black Lives Matter, please vote, because we've got to get people like Karen Bass, you know, who represents Los Angeles. People like her, we've got to get people like her in the Congress. People like Raul Grijalva, Ruben Gallegos, and hopefully my son Emilio Huerta. You know, we've got to get good people in the Congress who can change the system.
Dolores Huerta, you mentioned Black Lives Matter. I wanted to go to that fundraiser in Charleston, South Carolina, where a Black Lives Matter activist named Ashley Williams held a banner up. She had gotten into the meeting. And the banner quoted Hillary Clinton. It said, "We have to bring them to heel." That was the controversial statements that Clinton made in 1996 about some youth whom she called, quote, super predators. Williams then confronted Clinton saying, quote, "I am not a super predator."
I'm not a super predator, Hillary Clinton.
Okay, fine, we'll talk about it.
You apologize to black people for mass incarceration?
Well, can I talk, and then maybe you can listen to what I say? Okay, fine. Thank you very much. There's a lot of issues in this campaign.
I know that you called black youth super predators in 1994. Please explain the record. Explain it to us. You owe black people an apology.
Well,
excuse us. That's an inappropriate
if you will give me a chance to talk, I'll approach your side. You know what? Nobody's ever asked me before. You're the first person person to ask me, and I'm happy to address it, but you are the first person to ask me here. Okay, back to the issues.
That's Hillary Clinton saying to Black Lives Matter actress Ashley Williams, you're the first one to ask me about this. Williams confronting Hillary Clinton at this private fundraiser right before the South Carolina primary. Ashley was then escorted away. Williams says a friend contributed $500 so she could attend the private event. The protest was a response to these comments that Hillary Clinton made while speaking at Keene College in New Hampshire in 1996.
They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel.
That was Hillary Clinton in 1996. Dolores Huerta, your response.
Well, I can say this, that when we see how African Americans are voting for Hillary Clinton in overwhelming numbers, we saw that in Mississippi. We saw this in South Carolina. So obviously there are people in the African American community that respect Hillary Clinton and, like myself, have a lot of faith in what she will be able to accomplish. I think she is a doer. She's not just a talker, she's a doer. And I do believe that she has compassion. You know, she showed that. She had the first conference for children of color in the United States of America worried about their health. When she passed the program that got over 8 million children covered under a health program, and this is before Obamacare. So Hillary is a person that does care about people and about children. You know, I can say with my own life, I came out very middle class, but I went down to Delano to work with farm workers. You know, went to jail, got beaten up by the police, and you have to kind of sometimes get into people's shoes to understand what they're doing. I am with Cornel. You know, 5 of my grandchildren are Mexican Afro-American children. Yeah. And I know what my grandchildren have also had the same experiences of harassment by police, etc. And so I know what we're all living through. And it's got to change, but it's going to take all of us to change Dolores, it. And we have to look at the record of accomplishment. Bernie's been in Congress for 26 years. And really, we have to think about, during that period of time, I know he passed one bill on veterans, which is kind of like motherhood, but, you know, and we compare his accomplishments with Hillary Clinton's. No, but Bernie has a really good line, and Hillary is the one that can make it happen.
But Sister Dolores, you know that kind of language against precious black youth is not just vicious, it justified the expansion of an ugly prison system, those families that were broken, those folk who were brought in incarcerated, their lives often destroyed. So it is not just a matter of speech and having a conference. We're talking about a language tied to actual policy. Same is true with welfare in 1996. We were there together. They pulled the rug from under poor people. That was Hillary giving speeches for that too. And they had what? A black woman when Clinton signing the bill doing what? Falling right into the demonizing and vilification of black women. And you say, well, black people are voting for them, but black people often vote against their interests following a misleadership class, the wonderful language of Glenn Ford and the others. So we have to be honest just at the level of morality and spirituality, since we're both religious too. And that's why I can't see Hillary having the kind of integrity and conviction. Bernie Sanders, one of the reasons why he has trouble in Congress is Congress is a site of legalized bribery and normalized corruption, so you don't have integrity in Congress. That's why you got 8% of Americans who approve of Congress. They don't have the truth-telling. They don't have the justice witnessing that one would want. Bernie Sanders does. He cuts against that grain, and now that we've won in Michigan, we're going to turn this corner. We're going to bring the neoliberal era to a close, my sister. We're going to fight the neo-fascism of Trump in the name of a neo-populism, and we're going to invite you to get on the Bernie Sanders love train.
Well, but before we get on the love train, and I have to say that if Bernie gets nominated, we'll yet to see the real attacks that will come against him. At this point, the attacks are concentrated mostly on Trump right now. But there'll be a whole different situation starting in September. But I'd like to bring Melina Abdullah into this conversation in terms of the appeal that Dolores Huerta has made to Black Lives Matter to please get involved in voting, if not at the presidential level. There's also all of this congressional and Senate races that are up and coming that will really determine what any president will be able to do. Your response to Dolores Huerta?
So I think we have a great deal of respect, of course, for Dolores Huerta, as well as Dr. West. It's really important that we understand what Black Lives Matter is saying. We're saying that no candidate deserves our endorsement. That does not mean that we're telling people to stay home. And so it's really kind of a personal decision. Some people will go to the polls and vote for something else. Maybe they won't vote for the president. Maybe they won't vote for a Democrat or a Republican for president. The most important thing for us, though, is not to overinvest in the electoral system. And I think that the dismissal at the end of that engagement that Hillary Clinton had for Ashley Williams when she said, go run for something, I think is indicative of an overinvestment in an electoral system that simply does not work for us. Real change, transformative change, the kind of fundamental change that will undo a prison industrial complex, that will undo an educational system that keeps us miseducated and undereducated, that will undo a system of policing that brutalizes and occupies Black and brown neighborhoods, will come from people engaging on a street level. And so, yes, we have to push elected officials. We have to absolutely engage the system that is. We have to disrupt the system that is. And then we have to fiercely love our own communities and understand our own power. Understand that the kind of change that freed us from slavery, that brought about civil rights, that brought Black power, that brought ethnic studies, which is now under attack, came from people organizing themselves. The kind of change that Dolores Huerta was involved in with the farm workers movement, right, was about getting farm workers to understand their own power. So we're not telling people to stay home. And much more so, we're telling people to do more than vote, to get out into the streets, to join us, to do what Kwame Ture said, organize, 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 and remember that you can't just go to the polls. We have to be out in the streets.
Interestingly, most people are staying home. Now, I hate to rain on anyone's parade, but even with all of the attention, looking at Pew Research on who's coming out to vote, through the first 12 primaries of 2016, combined Republican turnout has been 17.3% of eligible voters, and that's the highest number since any year since 1980. Only 17.3% of the eligible voters. Democratic turnout so far is 11.7%. That means, close to 90% are not participating, the highest since 1992, with the notable exception of the extraordinarily high turnout in 2008. Now, in Michigan, Democratic vote was up, and certainly Republican vote was up. But that shows you how low it has been. Most countries, vast majority of people vote in the industrialized world. In the United States, if we have half the people voting, and these numbers are 17% of Republicans, 11% of Democrats.
No, it's a sign of the democracy that's anemic. It's a sign that people just know the system is rigged. It's a sign that they know big money dictates and shapes the destiny of the government and the society. Unfortunately, the dominant response is one of staying away rather than trying to participate and reshape it. So we can understand in a certain sense the apathy, but the apathy is in no way justified. We've got to participate, not just in the ballot box, but as Sister Melina says, we got to hit the streets. We have to have organizing and mobilizing, and have to be willing to go to jail. And some of us actually have to be willing to die.
I want to go back to Sunday evening's presidential debate in Flint, Michigan.
We're going to stop this kind of job exporting, and we're going to start importing and growing jobs again in our country.
Senator Sanders, I'll let you. Yeah.
I am very glad, Anderson, that Secretary Clinton has discovered religion on this issue. But it's a little bit too late. Secretary Clinton supported virtually every one of these disastrous trade agreements written by corporate America.
That was an exchange over trade policy. Dolores Huerta, what about this issue of NAFTA and many of the other trade bills, free trade bills that not only Secretary Clinton, but obviously her husband, Bill Clinton, was very much instrumental with?
Yeah, I think, again, that they're putting a lot of bills the things that he did on Hillary. And actually, she did oppose the other trade agreement that came after NAFTA. And I don't think that she was in Congress when NAFTA was passed originally. That was Bill Clinton that did that. And she's come out against the TPP. But I want to say one more thing about the voting, because I think it is so crucial. I mean, in the farm workers movement, the only way that we were able to change things was by people voting. And, we were able to pass laws to protect farm workers, like unemployment insurance, the right to organize, the amnesty bill in 1986, because we were able to elect people to Congress that supported us. And we've got to take the power. In my organization, the Dolores Huerta Foundation, this is what we do. 11 of our people, these are ordinary construction workers, farm workers, people that work in hotels, have gotten themselves elected to office. Kamala Harris is running in California for the...
We just lost Dolores Huerta. What you were saying?
No, the problem is that Hillary Clinton, on 30 occasions, has said positive things about the TPP. She said it was the gold standard for trade. When she started to run, she flip-flopped. That's what happens when you have a Wall Street Democrat that has strong flip-flop proclivities.
Well,
that's not integrity.
Her claim was that she had not seen the final version of it. It was only then that she decided to oppose it after seeing the final version.
Well, I was born at night, but not last night.
Melina Abdullah, where do you plan to go? I mean, with the Black Lives Matter movement, the whole group, and of course it's not just you, a professor at California State. Clearly, the Black Lives Matter movement has massively shaped this campaign. I mean, when you look at the interruptions of, well, back with Martin O'Malley and with Bernie Sanders, and now with Hillary Clinton, and the pressure on Bernie Sanders and the pressure then he puts on Hillary Clinton, did you ever dream you would have this level of success?
I mean, I think that what we did do when we birthed Black Lives Matter 2.5 years ago is recognize that transformative change comes when we adopt what Ella Baker calls a group-centered leadership model. And so the reason that we've been successful in kind of lifting up the issues, the reason that we've been successful in illuminating, I think that what Dolores Huerta was saying about some black elected officials in the black middle class, especially supporting Hillary Clinton, kind of the entrenched black leadership supporting Hillary Clinton, I think even for some of them, many of them didn't know about the super predator comments, about where she stood on the prison industrial complex, where she stood on questions around black young people. And I think that the reason that those have been lifted up is because we have many, many voices. And so what we started 2.5 years ago and kind of engaging in Black Lives Matter has turned into a mass movement that includes tens of thousands of leaders. And so we have Ashley Williams, we have Tia Oso, we have so many, Donisha Yancey, so many other folks who are engaging in ways that are disrupting the existing system and forcing the system to actually hear us and engage us or suffered continuous disruptions. And so I think that as a student of history, as a student of political history, we're remembering that that is really our power. Our power comes with not simply investing in the systems and the mechanisms that they tell us we must invest in, but saying, no, there's ways in which we have to disrupt because the system wasn't created for us. And so we have to shift narratives.
What is your take on Black Lives Matter activists now running for office, like DeRay McKesson in Baltimore running for mayor?
Well, I think it's important that we understand the distinction between the Black Lives Matter network and the movement for Black Lives. So DeRay McKesson has absolutely been vocal on issues of police brutality and engaged. He, I think, launched Campaign Zero, but he's a different organizer than the organizers through the Black Lives Matter network. So we're again saying that we're not telling anybody not to engage in electoral politics. And in fact, some electoral politics and some elected officials have been friends of the Black Lives Matter networks, especially. So if we think about like Mayor Raz Baraka in Newark, New Jersey, having the courage and vision to say, let's redefine what public safety means, and inviting Black Lives Matter and other visionary leaders like Akilah Sherrills in to say, maybe we don't invest so heavily in policing, let's invest in things that actually work, like prevention and intervention programs, like education, like after-school programs. I think those are the kinds of engagements with electoral politics that we're most willing to have.
We're going to have to leave it there. I want to thank you, Professor Melina Abdullah, for joining us. Organizer with Black Lives Matter, hasn't endorsed any presidential candidate. Again, as she said, doesn't mean she's not going out to vote. Also, Professor and Chair of Pan-African Studies at California State University, Los Angeles. And Dolores Huerta, legendary civil rights activist, farm worker, organizer. Cornel West, we'd like to ask